need to tell you about the poorest man who taught me more about wealth than all the wealthy patients I ever treated. Picture this, year 1185. I'm walking toward the synagogue in Cairo, my mind consumed with the same thoughts that probably consume yours right now. Professional pressures, family responsibilities, the endless chase for more success, more recognition, more security. I was at the height of my career, personal physician to the Sultan, respected scholar, financial prosperity beyond what most men would ever reach. But inside, I felt empty. Sound familiar? Then I saw him, sitting outside the synagogue door, clothes torn, body thin from hunger, hands worn from years of suffering. Everything about him screamed failure by the world's standards. But when our eyes met, something impossible happened. He smiled. Not the polite smile you give a stranger, not the desperate smile of someone begging for help. A genuine smile of pure contentment. How can a man who has nothing smile as if he has everything? That question completely changed my understanding of prosperity. See, I had been measuring wealth the way every successful man measures it, by what you accumulate, by what you can afford, by what others see when they look at your life. But this beggar was about to teach me that true wealth has nothing to do with what you own, and everything to do with how you see what you already have. Most men your age spend their whole lives climbing the ladder of success, only to discover they leaned it against the wrong wall. They achieve everything they thought they wanted, yet they wake up feeling something crucial is missing. The missing piece isn't more money. It isn't a bigger house, a nicer car, or a more impressive title. The missing piece was what that beggar had in abundance, the ability to find wealth in what already exists instead of poverty in what doesn't yet exist. Think about your morning routine. You wake up and within minutes your mind starts cataloging everything that's wrong, everything that needs fixing, everything that isn't enough. Your income isn't enough. Your house isn't big enough. Your car isn't nice enough. Your status isn't impressive enough. But what if I told you that very pattern of thinking is what keeps you poor, no matter how much money you have in the bank? That beggar was about to show me something that would revolutionize not just my understanding of wealth, but my entire approach to life. He was about to teach me that the difference between poverty and prosperity isn't in your bank account. It's in your perspective. And tonight I'll share every word of that conversation with you. Because what he taught me in 20 minutes outside that synagogue will transform your relationship with money, success, and happiness forever. But first, you need to face something about yourself you probably don't want to admit. "Doctor," the beggar said, looking straight into my eyes, "may I ask you something?" I nodded, expecting him to ask for money or food. Instead, he asked the question that haunts every successful man. Why do you look so troubled when you have so much to be grateful for? His words hit me like a physical blow. Here was a man with literally nothing, asking me why I looked burdened when I had everything. How did he see what I was hiding from everyone around me? The truth is, despite all my accomplishments, I woke up every morning with a knot in my stomach. Anxiety about losing what I had built. Frustration that success wasn't what I thought it would be. A constant sense that no matter what I achieved, it would never be enough. Does that sound familiar? Do you recognize that feeling? You've worked decades to build your life. You have more than most people ever dream of, yet somehow you still feel like you're failing, like you're falling behind, like you're missing something essential. The beggar went on, "I see successful men like you walk past me every day, fine clothes, full stomachs, important places to be, but their faces look like they're carrying the weight of the world. And here I am," he gestured to his simple surroundings, "with nothing to my name, and I wake up every morning amazed that I get to see another sunrise. This is the paradox that destroys most successful men. The more you have, the more you fear losing. The higher you climb, the further you have to fall. The bigger your lifestyle, the harder you must work to maintain it. You thought success would bring peace. Instead, it brought more problems. You thought wealth would bring security. Instead, it brought new fears. You thought achievement would bring satisfaction. Instead, it brought pressure to achieve even more. Meanwhile, this man with nothing was experiencing something you've forgotten how to feel. Simple contentment with what is, right now. "Tell me," he said, "when you eat dinner tonight, will you actually taste it? Or will you be thinking about tomorrow's problems while the food grows cold in your mouth?" I realized I couldn't remember the last time I truly tasted my food. I ate while reading, while planning, while worrying. But when was the last time I was present enough to fully savor the meal before me? When you sleep in your comfortable bed tonight, will you feel grateful for its warmth and safety? Or will your mind be spinning with tomorrow's obligations? Again, I couldn't remember the last time I felt grateful for my bed. It had become just another thing I took for granted while my mind raced with endless concerns. The beggar leaned closer. "Doctor, you have a disease. It's the same disease I see in every successful man who walks past me. You've trained yourself to see poverty in the midst of abundance." Think about that for a moment. You've trained yourself to see poverty in the midst of abundance. How many blessings have you missed today because you were focused on what was missing instead of what was present? How much wealth do you already have but fail to see because you're obsessed with the wealth you don't yet have? This beggar was about to teach me the secret that transforms any life from scarcity to abundance, no matter what's in your bank account. The beggar reached into his torn pocket and pulled out a small piece of stale bread, probably his only food for the day. He broke it in half and offered me the larger piece. "Doctor, you look hungry for something this bread cannot satisfy, but maybe sharing it will help us both." I was stunned. That man, who clearly needed every crumb to survive, offered to share his meager meal with me. When was the last time someone with less offered you more? When was the last time you met someone who gave out of need rather than out of surplus? I politely refused the bread, but his gesture stirred something deep inside me. There I was, wealthy enough to buy 1,000 loaves, being offered bread by a man who might not eat again until tomorrow. "Do you know what the difference is between us, doctor?" he asked, taking a small bite of the bread and chewing it slowly, deliberately, as if it were a delicacy. I shook my head. "You eat to fill your stomach. I eat to celebrate life." Watch what he did next. He closed his eyes as he chewed, took a deep breath, as if the simple act of eating was a profound experience. Smiled between bites. This man was having a spiritual experience with a piece of stale bread. Meanwhile, I was already thinking about my next appointment, my next patient, my next obligation. Even while speaking with him, part of my mind was somewhere else. "Every morning," he continued, "I wake up and thank God for 3 things before my feet touch the ground. First, for waking up because many didn't. Second, for being able to see the sky because many cannot. Third, for being able to choose how to spend the day because many don't have that freedom." Pause and think about that for a moment. When you wake up tomorrow morning, what will your first thoughts be? Will they be thoughts of gratitude for another day of life, or thoughts of anxiety about another day of obligations? This beggar had discovered something most successful men miss: the difference between existing and living. You exist through your days, you manage them, you survive them, you get through them. But do you live them? Do you savor them? Do you feel grateful to experience them? "Doctor, can I tell you a secret?" he asked. I leaned in. "I used to be like you." "What do you mean?" "I used to have money, a business, a beautiful house, servants, everything the world says makes a man successful." My eyes widened. This beggar was once wealthy. And I was miserable. Every day was a burden. Every meal was tasteless. Every night was filled with worry about losing what I had built. What happened? I lost everything. Business failed. Debts consumed my assets. I ended up here, on the street, with nothing but the clothes on my back. He paused and smiled that same impossible smile, and that's when I discovered I had been rich all along. I just couldn't see it because I was looking in the wrong places. This is the revelation that changes everything. Wealth isn't what you accumulate. Wealth is what you appreciate. The beggar hadn't become rich by gaining more. He had become rich by seeing more clearly what he already had. Doctor, you're wealthy beyond measure, but you're living like a poor man because you can't see your wealth. You're surrounded by miracles you call ordinary, blessed with gifts you call problems. His words cut through every defense I had built around my dissatisfaction. How many miracles had I called ordinary today? How many gifts had I labeled as problems? Then the beggar did something that broke my heart. He finished his small piece of bread, brushed the crumbs from his hands and whispered, "Thank you." "Thank you for what?" I asked. "For this meal, for this conversation, for this moment of human connection, for the strength in my body that allowed me to chew, for the tongue that could taste, for the throat that could swallow." He was thanking God for the basic functions of eating a piece of stale bread. When was the last time you thanked anyone for your ability to taste your food? When was the last time you felt grateful that your body could digest a meal? This man was finding profound wealth in experiences you take completely for granted. But here's what really broke my heart: the depth of gratitude in his voice. It wasn't performed gratitude. It wasn't the kind of thankfulness you're supposed to feel. It was genuine wonder at the miracle of being alive and able to eat. "Doctor, yesterday a merchant threw this bread away because it was too hard. He saw garbage. I saw a gift." The same piece of bread. Two completely different experiences. One man saw waste, the other saw wealth. This is happening in your life right now. Every day you're surrounded by gifts that you're experiencing as garbage because you're looking through the wrong lens. Your morning coffee, is it a hassle to make or a luxury that billions of people can't afford? Your commute to work, is it an annoyance to endure or proof that you have meaningful work and reliable transportation? Your family's demands on your time, are they burdens to manage or evidence that people love you enough to want your presence? The beggar continued, "I've learned that poverty and wealth have nothing to do with what's in your pocket. They have everything to do with what's in your perspective." He gestured around at his simple surroundings. "I own nothing, but I lack nothing. You own everything, but you lack peace." This hit me like a revelation. I owned everything, but lacked peace. How many successful men do you know who fit that exact description? They've accumulated wealth but lost tranquility. They've gained possessions but lost presence. They've achieved security but lost satisfaction. The secret, he said, is learning to receive your life as a gift instead of earning your life as a wage. Let that penetrate your thinking for a moment. Are you receiving your life as a gift or earning your life as a wage? When you receive your life as a gift, every day is a blessing to be enjoyed. When you earn your life as a wage, every day is a debt to be paid. When you receive your life as a gift, what you have is enough. When you earn your life as a wage, what you have is never enough. When you receive your life as a gift, you wake up grateful. When you earn your life as a wage, you wake up anxious. The beggar reached over and touched my arm gently. "Doctor, you're working so hard to earn what you already possess." "What do you mean?" "Peace, joy, satisfaction, security. You're trying to buy them with money and achievements. But they're not for sale. They're gifts. And they're already yours if you'll just receive them." This conversation was rewiring my entire understanding of prosperity. True wealth isn't what you earn, it's what you receive. True security isn't what you accumulate, it's what you appreciate. True success isn't what you achieve, it's what you acknowledge. Doctor, can I ask you something personal? I nodded, though part of me was nervous about where this was heading. When you go home tonight to your beautiful house, will you feel free or trapped? The question caught me completely off guard. Trapped? In my own home? But as I thought about it, I realized he was right. My beautiful house had become a burden. The mortgage payments that required me to work constantly, the maintenance demands that consumed my weekends, the pressure to maintain a lifestyle that matched the house's status. Had my dream home become my golden prison? I see that look in your eyes, the beggar said gently. You know what I'm talking about. He was right. My possessions had started possessing me. Let me tell you something about freedom, Doctor. Freedom isn't having enough money to buy whatever you want. Freedom is not wanting things that your money can't buy. This hit me like a thunderbolt. You think freedom means having enough money to buy whatever you want. But real freedom means not wanting things that money can't buy. Think about your own life. What are you chasing that money can't actually purchase? Respect that can't be bought, only earned. Peace that can't be purchased, only practiced. Love that can't be acquired, only given and received. Purpose that can't be hired, only discovered. Satisfaction that can't be sold, only felt. The beggar continued, I used to think my wealth made me free, but I was a slave to maintaining it, slave to growing it, slave to protecting it, slave to worrying about losing it. Does this describe your relationship with your success? Are you free because of your wealth or enslaved by it? Do your possessions serve your happiness, or do you serve your possessions' demands? When I lost everything, he said, I discovered something shocking. I didn't lose my freedom. I found it. How? I asked. Because I stopped being afraid. What's the worst that could happen to me now? I'm already at the bottom. There's nowhere to fall. But you're also homeless, I pointed out. He laughed. Doctor, I'm not homeless. The whole world is my home. I sleep under the same stars you do. I breathe the same air. I see the same sunrise. But you have no security. I have the only security that matters. I know I can be happy with nothing. That means I can never truly lose everything, because my happiness doesn't depend on everything. This was revolutionary thinking. You've been trying to buy security by accumulating enough stuff that you'll never have to worry about not having enough stuff. But true security comes from knowing you can be content with less, not from having more. The beggar leaned back against the wall. Your golden handcuffs are beautiful, Doctor, but they're still handcuffs. What do you mean? You can't quit the job that stresses you because you need the income for the lifestyle you've built. You can't take time off because the bills demand constant work. You can't pursue your real dreams because your fake ones are too expensive to maintain. How many men do you know who are trapped by their own success? They wanted freedom, so they built wealth. But their wealth demands so much maintenance that they have less freedom than when they started. The secret, the beggar said, is learning to live richly with little rather than poorly with much, and the living richly with little rather than poorly with much. This beggar had discovered something that most wealthy men never learn. Prosperity is a feeling, not a bank balance. Now, if you want to continue learning with me, subscribe to the channel. It's easy. Down below this video, there's a red button that says subscribe. Just click on it. And right next to it, there's a little bell. Click that too to receive the next teachings. Do it now so you don't miss anything. The beggar pointed to a wealthy merchant passing by, dressed in fine clothes, followed by servants carrying his parcels. See that man, Doctor? He is poorer than I am. I looked at the merchant's obvious wealth. How can you say that? Look at his face. I looked closer. Despite his prosperity, the merchant's face showed no joy, no peace, no satisfaction. He barked orders at his servants, complained about prices, worried about competition. He has everything he wants, the beggar observed, but he wants everything he doesn't have. That is the worst kind of poverty. This is the poverty of abundance, having more than you need, yet enjoying less than you could. How many successful men do you know who live exactly in this condition? They have beautiful houses. They are too busy to enjoy. They have expensive cars. They are too stressed to appreciate. They take luxury vacations, but spend them worrying about work. They eat gourmet meals while checking their emails. Doctor, let me explain the difference between him and me, the beggar continued. When he eats, he's already thinking about dessert. When I eat, I am grateful for every bite. When he buys something, he is already planning the next purchase. When I receive something, I marvel that it has come to me at all. When he reaches a goal, he immediately sets a higher one. When I achieve some small success, I celebrate it deeply. Do you see the pattern? The merchant was always living in the future, never in the present, always focused on what was missing, never on what already existed, always chasing more, never receiving what was already in his hands. That is why, said the beggar, he grows richer yet feels poorer, and I grow poorer yet feel richer. This is the great paradox of modern success. The more you focus on getting more, the less you are able to enjoy what you already have. The more you achieve, the more you notice what you still haven't achieved. I call this the curse of almost enough, the beggar explained. No matter how much he accumulates, it is almost enough. Almost enough to feel secure. Almost enough to feel satisfied. Almost enough to stop worrying. But almost enough is never enough, is it? Almost enough becomes the story of your whole life. You're almost where you want to be. Almost successful enough. Almost rich enough to be happy. Meanwhile, you miss the wealth you already possess because you are too focused on the wealth you are still trying to acquire. The beggar broke off another small piece of bread and ate it slowly. You know what I've learned, doctor? There are two ways to be rich: have more or want less. Most men spend their whole lives trying to have more. I discovered the secret of wanting less. But doesn't wanting less mean settling for mediocrity? I asked. He smiled. Doctor, there's a difference between wanting less and accepting less. I want less so I can appreciate more. I accept what I have so I can build on gratitude instead of dissatisfaction. This distinction is crucial. Wanting less doesn't mean accepting less. It means appreciating what you have while you work toward what you want. The merchant walked past us again, returning from his errands, still stressed, still complaining, still focused on problems rather than possessions, obstacles rather than opportunities. He's trapped in abundance, the beggar observed, surrounded by blessings he can't see because he's looking for better blessings. But you, he said, looking at me directly, you have the choice. You can live like him, rich but unsatisfied. Or you can live like me, grateful and therefore wealthy. The poverty of abundance. Having everything you want but wanting everything you don't have. Which describes your life right now. Doctor, would you like to know my secret to wealth? I leaned forward eagerly. This man who had nothing was about to share the secret to wealth. Every morning before I even open my eyes, I perform a ritual. Want to know what it is? I nodded. I count my blessings, literally. I count them like you count your money. He held up his weathered fingers. First, I thank God I woke up. Many people didn't wake up this morning. That alone makes me wealthy. Second, I thank God I can see. There are blind men who would give everything they own for one glimpse of this sunrise. Third, I thank God I can hear. The birds, the wind, human voices. Deaf men would empty their banks to hear their children laugh. Fourth, I thank God I can walk, even if I have nowhere special to go. Men in wheelchairs would trade fortunes for healthy legs. Fifth, I thank God I can think clearly. Men with clouded minds would give anything for one day of clear thoughts. By the time he reached his 10th finger, I was overwhelmed. This man was starting every day by acknowledging 10 miracles he possessed that money couldn't buy. Doctor, by the time I finish this ritual, I feel like the richest man alive. Because I am. Nundim, when was the last time you started your day by counting blessings instead of counting problems? When was the last time you woke up feeling wealthy because of what you already possessed, rather than poor because of what you still lacked? But here's the real secret, the beggar continued. This ritual doesn't just make me feel grateful in the morning, it changes how I see everything throughout the day. How? When you begin the day by recognizing miracles, you continue seeing miracles all day long. When you begin the day by counting blessings, you keep finding blessings everywhere. That is profound. Your morning ritual doesn't just shape your morning, it shapes your entire perspective for the whole day. If you start the day focused on problems, you will keep finding problems. If you start the day feeling overwhelmed, you will interpret everything as overwhelming. If you start the day feeling behind, you will spend the entire day trying to catch up. But if you start the day recognizing wealth, you will keep discovering wealth. Doctor, most wealthy men begin their day checking their investments. I begin the day recognizing my investments in life itself. What do you mean? My investment in breath, it keeps paying dividends all day long. My investment in sight, it keeps showing me beauty I never paid for. My investment in relationships, every conversation is a return on the love I gave. My investment in awareness, every thought is a profit from the miracle of being alive. This beggar had discovered something revolutionary. The most profitable investments are the ones you never make with money. But here is what really happens when you practice this daily ritual, he said. You stop taking things for granted. And the moment you stop taking things for granted, everything becomes a gift instead of something guaranteed. Your health becomes a gift instead of something guaranteed. Your family becomes a gift instead of something guaranteed. Your skills become a gift instead of something guaranteed. Your opportunities become a gift instead of something guaranteed. And when everything becomes a gift instead of something given, the beggar smiled, you realize you are surrounded by wealth you never earned and can never lose. This is the daily ritual that transforms any life from scarcity into abundance. Begin each day by recognizing 10 things you already have that money cannot buy. Not things you want, things you already have. Not things you are working toward, things you are already blessed with. Not future possibilities, present realities. The beggar lifted his arms toward the sky. Doctor, I wake up every morning and discover I am a millionaire. The only difference between us is that I can see my wealth and you cannot see yours. Tomorrow morning, before you check your phone, before you think about your schedule, before you begin worrying about your day, try the beggar's ritual. Count 10 blessings you already possess and watch how it changes everything. The beggar looked at me with gentle eyes. Doctor, may I ask you a difficult question? Of course. When was the last time you felt truly grateful for something you already had? The question hit me like a punch to the stomach. I had to think, really think. When was the last time I felt genuine gratitude for something I already possessed, instead of relief for something I had finally acquired? I could not remember. That's what I thought, the beggar said sadly. You suffer from what I call a gratitude deficit. What do you mean? You are so behind in gratitude for what you already have that you cannot enjoy anything new that comes to you. That was profound. A deficit of thanksgiving. Think about it. When good things happen to you now, do you feel grateful? Or do you immediately start thinking about what you need to do to keep them, improve them, or get more? When you received your last promotion, Did you celebrate and feel grateful? Or did you immediately start thinking about the next level? When you bought your house, did you feel grateful for the shelter and the beauty? Or did you immediately start thinking about upgrades and renovations? When you reached a goal, did you stop to recognize the blessing, or did you immediately turn to the next target? Doctor, you are living in spiritual debt, the beggar explained. You keep receiving life's gifts, but you never acknowledge them. And so life stops feeling generous, even though it keeps giving. This is why successful men feel empty despite their achievements. They carry a massive gratitude deficit. They have received countless blessings without recognizing them as blessings. It's like someone giving you gifts, the beggar continued, but you never say thank you. Over time, even the most generous people stop wanting to give to ungrateful recipients. But I do say thank you, I protested. To people, yes. But what about to life itself? To God? To the mysterious forces that blessed you with health, abilities, opportunities, and relationships? When was the last time you felt grateful to existence itself for the miracle of being alive and conscious? When was the last time you thanked God, or the universe, or whatever you believe in, for the profound gift of awareness? When was the last time you acknowledged that your ability to think, to feel, to experience is the most valuable thing you own? Here is what happens when you live with a gratitude deficit, the beggar said. Nothing is ever enough because you are not receiving what you have as enough. You get a raise, but it isn't enough to solve all your problems. You get recognition, but it isn't enough to heal your insecurity. You achieve success, but it isn't enough to fill your emptiness. You acquire possessions, but they aren't enough to create lasting satisfaction. Nothing is enough when you are not grateful for anything you already have. It struck me with crystal clarity. My dissatisfaction was not because I didn't have enough. My dissatisfaction was because I hadn't recognized enough. Doctor, gratitude is not just good manners. Gratitude is the foundation of prosperity. When you are grateful for what you have becomes more than enough. But when you are not grateful for what you have, even having everything feels like nothing. The beggar picked up his piece of bread again. Look, doctor. He held the bread up against the sunlight, examined it carefully, smelled it, broke it slowly, and observed the inner texture. Most people would see stale bread, he said. I see a miracle. Grain that sprouted from the earth, rain that nourished it, sun that fueled its growth, human hands that harvested, milled, baked it, and somehow brought it to me. He took a small bite and chewed slowly, with evident delight. This bread connects me to the earth, the sky, the farmers, the bakers, and to God himself. How can I not be grateful? This is what happens when you repay your gratitude deficit. The ordinary becomes extraordinary. The simple becomes sacred. The common becomes miraculous. Doctor, you have thousands of miracles in your life that you treat as ordinary. You have countless gifts you take for granted. Begin to recognize them. Begin to thank life for them. Begin to receive them as the incredible blessings they truly are. When you repay your debt of thanksgiving, everything you already have becomes more valuable than everything you don't yet have. At that moment, another wealthy man walked past us. His clothes finer than the first merchants, more servants, more visible displays of prosperity. I noticed the beggar didn't even look up. Doesn't it bother you, I asked, to see men with so much when you have so little? The beggar looked genuinely puzzled by my question. Doctor, why would someone else's blessings diminish my own? That simple question revealed something toxic in my own thinking. I had been unconsciously comparing my blessings to the blessings of others, as if blessings were a competition. Let me ask you something, Doctor. When you see the sunrise, do you wish it were bigger because someone else might be seeing a more beautiful sunrise somewhere else? Of course not. When you taste delicious food, do you enjoy it less because someone else may be eating something more expensive? No. When you feel love for your family, does that love shrink because someone else might have a larger family? No. Then why do you let someone else's wealth make you feel poor? Why do you let someone else's success make you feel unsuccessful? Why do you let someone else's achievements make you feel as though you haven't achieved enough? This beggar was exposing the trap of comparison that robs every successful man of his joy. You work hard to build a good life. You achieve success. You accumulate wealth. You create comfort and security for your family. But then you look around and see someone who has more, and suddenly what looked like abundance feels like scarcity. What looked like success feels like failure. What felt enough suddenly feels not enough. Doctor, comparison is the thief of gratitude, and gratitude is the foundation of wealth. That is profound. Comparison is the thief of gratitude. Every time you compare your blessings with someone else's, you rob yourself of the ability to enjoy your own blessings. Every time you measure your success against someone else's, you diminish your own sense of accomplishment. Every time you view your life through the lens of what others have, you lose sight of what you have. I used to do this, admitted the beggar. Even when I had wealth, I always looked at men who had more wealth. My abundance looked like poverty because I focused on their abundance instead of my own. What changed? I realized there will always be someone with more. Always. No matter how much you accumulate, someone, somewhere, has accumulated more. If you make your happiness depend on having more than others, you guarantee your own misery, because there is no top to that mountain. That is why so many successful men feel like failures. They are not comparing their lives to their past lives. They are comparing their lives to the lives of others. You have more than you did 5 years ago, but you feel less successful because your neighbor has more than you. You achieve things you once only dreamed of, but you feel unsuccessful because your colleague achieved things you haven't yet. You are living a life millions would consider wealthy, but you feel poor because you know people wealthier than you. The secret, the beggar said, is to compare yourself only with who you used to be, not with who someone else is now. Are you more grateful today than yesterday? Are you more at peace today than last year? Are you more generous today than 5 years ago? Are you more present with your family today than a decade ago? These are the only comparisons that matter, because they are the comparisons that can truly make you feel rich instead of poor. The beggar looked directly at me. Doctor, you are richer than you were 10 years ago. But you feel poorer because you compare yourself to men richer than you now. Stop measuring your abundance against other people's abundance. Start measuring your growth against your own starting point. When you do that, you will realize you are already richer than your wildest dreams from just a few years ago. The trap of comparison. It turns abundance into scarcity, success into failure, blessings into burdens. But when you escape the trap of comparison, everything you have becomes more than enough. Doctor, would you like to know what I am truly rich in? I nodded eagerly. The beggar smiled and said a single word. Time. Time? I am the richest man you have ever met in terms of time. I have the whole day to watch the sunrise, the whole afternoon to observe people and learn from their stories, the whole night to reflect on the blessings of the day. It struck me like a revelation. Time. The one thing I always felt I never had enough of. You have money, he continued, but no time to enjoy your money. I have no money, but I have all the time in the world to enjoy what I have. Which of us is truly rich? That question shattered my understanding of prosperity. You work constantly to have a lifestyle you never have time to enjoy. You earn money to buy things you are too busy to appreciate. You build wealth to create freedom, but you are too bound by the demands of building wealth to experience freedom. Meanwhile, this beggar had something more valuable than money: presence. the ability to be fully alive in each moment instead of chasing moments for some future reward. Doctor, let me ask you, when you dine with your family, are you present during the meal? Or are you thinking about work? I had to admit the truth. Most meals with my family were interrupted by thoughts of patients, business, and obligations. I was physically present, but mentally absent. When you walk from one place to another, do you experience the walk, or are you simply trying to finish the walk to arrive at your destination? Again, I realized I'd spent most of my life trying to get through experiences instead of living them. When you lie down to sleep, do you feel grateful for the rest? Or are you already worried about tomorrow's responsibilities? My sleep was usually filled with anxiety about the next day, instead of gratitude for the completion of the present day. Doctor, you have little time. You have money, but no time to enjoy it. I have much time, I have no money, but I have infinite time to enjoy what I have. This was an entirely new way of measuring wealth. Time rich versus time poor. Present versus absent. Living life versus managing life. Here is my secret currency, the beggar explained. I pay attention. Most people spend their lives, but I invest my attention. And attention is the most valuable currency there is. When I pay attention to my bread, it becomes a banquet. When I pay attention to the sunrise, it becomes entertainment. When I pay attention to human conversations, they become education. When I pay attention to the wind, it becomes music. When I pay attention to my breath, it becomes meditation. I don't need money to have many experiences. I only need to pay attention to the experiences I am already having. This is revolutionary. You don't need more experiences to feel rich. You need to pay more attention to the experiences you are already having. You don't need more beautiful places to visit. You need to see the beauty of the places you are already in. You don't need more exciting activities. You need to find excitement in the activities you already do. You don't need to meet more interesting people. You need to become more interested in the people you already know. The beggar's secret currency was attention, and attention is free, unlimited, and always available. Doctor, you are spending your time trying to buy experiences. I'm spending my attention experiencing what is already here. You are working to pay for vacations. I'm on vacation right now. You are saving for leisure in retirement. I am enjoying leisure now. You are earning money for future security. I am feeling secure in present abundance. Which approach makes more sense? The beggar lay down on the ground and looked at the clouds. Doctor, I am having a luxury experience you cannot buy. I'm completely present in my own life. It costs nothing, but it is worth everything. His secret currency can be yours too. The question is, where are you spending your attention? The beggar sat down and looked at me with serious eyes. Doctor, I need to tell you something that may be hard to hear. What is it? You are spiritually bankrupt. His words hurt me, but I knew he wasn't trying to wound me. He was trying to help me see something I could not see for myself. What do you mean? You have wealth in your bank account, but you are bankrupt in your spiritual account. You have material possessions, but you are spiritually insolvent. You have financial success, but you carry a spiritual debt that is destroying your ability to enjoy that success. It was a devastating diagnosis, but I could feel the truth in it. How do you know? I asked. Your face, doctor. Spiritually rich men have calm faces. Spiritually bankrupt men have anxious faces, no matter how much money they have. I thought of all the wealthy men I had known. How many of them looked truly at peace? How many seemed genuinely satisfied? How many radiated the kind of inner wealth this beggar carried? Almost none. Spiritual bankruptcy, the beggar explained, happens when you try to feed the needs of the soul with material solutions. It's like trying to satisfy hunger by looking at pictures of food. It doesn't work, and it only makes the hunger worse. Your soul needs purpose, but you try to feed it with achievements. Your soul needs connection, but you try to feed it with networking. Your soul needs peace, but you try to feed it with security. Your soul needs meaning, but you try to feed it with money. Your soul needs love, but you try to feed it with luxury. These are category mistakes, Doctor, and they create a spiritual debt that no material wealth can repay. It was painfully clear. I'd been trying to solve spiritual problems with material solutions, and spiritual problems only get worse when you do that. Here's how you know you're spiritually bankrupt, he continued. Nothing you accomplish satisfies you for long. Every success feels empty once the initial excitement fades. You keep thinking the next achievement will be different, but it never is. He had just described my life perfectly. Every professional milestone, every financial win, every material acquisition brought a momentary thrill followed by renewed emptiness. But here's the good news, Doctor. Spiritual wealth is available to anyone, no matter their material circumstances. And when you have spiritual wealth, your material wealth becomes a blessing instead of a burden. How do you build spiritual wealth? The same way you build material wealth, through consistent investments in the right assets. What are spiritual assets? Gratitude, recognizing what you already have. Generosity, giving what you possess. Presence, being fully alive in the present moment. Purpose, serving something greater than yourself. Peace, accepting what you cannot change. Growth, becoming more than you were yesterday. Love, caring for others without expecting return. These are the investments that pay spiritual dividends, and spiritual dividends compound faster than financial ones. It fascinated me, spiritual assets that generated spiritual returns. Doctor, when you invest in gratitude, you receive joy as your dividend. When you invest in generosity, you receive fulfillment as your dividend. When you invest in presence, you receive peace as your dividend. When you invest in purpose, you receive meaning as your dividend. These dividends cannot be stolen, cannot crash, cannot be lost in a market collapse. They are the safest investments you can make. But here is the beauty of spiritual wealth, the beggar added with a smile. When you have it, your material wealth becomes more enjoyable. When you don't have it, no amount of material wealth will ever be enough. Spiritual wealth is the foundation. Material wealth is only the decoration. I realized I had been trying to build the decoration without the foundation. No wonder everything felt unstable. Doctor, you don't need to choose between material success and spiritual wealth. But you must get the order right. Spiritual wealth first, material wealth second. When you do that, the two forms of wealth support each other instead of competing with each other. The beggar stood up and brushed the dust from his clothes. You are not poor, Doctor. You've simply been looking in the wrong account. Your spiritual account is overdrawn, but you can fix that starting today. How? Make your first investment in gratitude. Right now. Acknowledge something you already have that money cannot buy. This was my opportunity to begin paying off my spiritual debt. Doctor, what do you think prosperity really means? I gave him the standard answer. Having enough money to live comfortably and provide for your family. The beggar shook his head gently. That's financial security, not prosperity. Prosperity is far more important than money. What do you mean? The word prosperity comes from ancient words meaning according to hope. True prosperity means your life is unfolding according to your deepest hopes, not just your bank account goals. It was a definition unlike anything I had ever heard. Most men, the beggar went on, spend their entire lives building financial prosperity while their deepest hopes wither from neglect. What do you mean by deepest hopes? Doctor, when you were young, before you began chasing money and status, what did you really hope your life would become? I had to dig deep for that answer. I had hoped to help people heal. I had hoped to make a meaningful difference. I had hoped to build deep relationships. I had hoped to feel peace and contentment. I had hoped to use my gifts to serve something greater than myself. And now, asked the beggar, how many of those hopes are being fulfilled by your current lifestyle? The honest answer was devastating. I was helping people heal professionally, but I wasn't fulfilled because I was too focused on the business side. I was making a difference, but I couldn't feel its meaning because I was too busy to reflect on the impact. I had relationships, but they weren't deep because I was too distracted to be fully present. Doctor, you've achieved financial prosperity, but you've neglected total prosperity. Your financial hopes have been realized, but your meaningful hopes are dying. That distinction changed my life. Financial prosperity versus total prosperity. Let me explain what true prosperity looks like, said the beggar. True prosperity means your relationships are flourishing, not just your bank account. It means your health is thriving, not just your business. It means your purpose is being fulfilled, not just your obligations. True prosperity means waking up excited about your day, not just secure about your future. It means going to bed satisfied with your choices, not just relieved to have survived another day. True prosperity means you are becoming more of who you were meant to be, not just accumulating more of what you think you need to have. I realized I had been chasing a counterfeit version of prosperity. But here is the beautiful part, Doctor. When you pursue true prosperity, when you align your life with your deepest hopes instead of just your surface goals, financial prosperity usually follows naturally. Why? Because when you do what you love, serve what matters to you, and become who you were meant to be, you give yourself fully to everything you do. And people pay dearly for wholehearted service. When you live according to your deepest hopes, the beggar continued, work doesn't feel like work. It feels like expression. And when work feels like expression, excellence flows naturally. But when you only chase money, work feels like sacrifice. And when work feels like sacrifice, excellence demands exhausting effort that eventually drains you. That explained why I felt so burned out despite my professional success. I was working against my nature instead of with it. Doctor, true prosperity means every area of your life flourishes together. Your spiritual life fuels your emotional life. Your emotional life sustains your physical life. Your physical life energizes your professional life. Your professional life supports your financial life. And your financial life empowers your spiritual life. It's a circle that grows stronger and stronger, but when any part of the circle is broken, the whole system begins to collapse. I could see exactly where my circle was broken. I had financial and professional prosperity, but I lacked spiritual and emotional prosperity. The broken parts were dragging down the strong ones. Here's what most men don't realize, said the beggar. They think prosperity means having enough money to be happy, but prosperity really means being happy enough that money becomes a tool instead of a goal. When you are happy enough, when you are prosperous in all dimensions of life, money becomes a resource you use to create more prosperity for yourself and others. But when you are not happy enough, when you are only financially prosperous, money becomes a drug you need more and more of to feel temporarily better. That was exactly my condition. Money had become a drug instead of a tool. So, how do I achieve true prosperity? I asked. Start by asking different questions. Instead of, how can I make more money? Ask, how can I feel more alive? Instead of, how can I be more successful? Ask, how can I be more myself? Instead of, how can I have more? Ask, how can I be more? The answers to those deeper questions will lead you to true prosperity. And true prosperity includes financial prosperity, but goes far beyond it. The beggar pointed toward the sky. Doctor, you've been trying to build a roof without a foundation. Financial success is the roof. Spiritual fulfillment is the foundation. Build the foundation first, and the roof becomes easy. Try to build the roof without the foundation, and everything eventually collapses. Your life hasn't collapsed yet, but you can feel it trembling, can't you? I could. Despite all my external stability, something fundamental felt unstable. True prosperity, the beggar said, is when your external life and your internal life are supporting each other instead of fighting each other. That's when you know you're living according to your deepest hopes instead of just your surface fears. Doctor, you want to know the daily practice that makes any soul wealthy? Yes. The beggar smiled. It's embarrassingly simple. Every day I practice 3 things: receiving, giving, and becoming. Tell me about receiving. Most successful men are terrible at receiving. They're great at earning, achieving, accumulating. But they're terrible at simply receiving what life is offering them right now. This hit home immediately. I was always working for the next thing, striving for the next level, pushing toward the next goal. But I was terrible at receiving and enjoying what I already had. Receiving means pausing to acknowledge what's already present. The health in your body, the love in your relationships, the beauty around you, the opportunities in front of you. Every morning I spend 10 minutes practicing pure receiving, not asking for anything, not working toward anything, just receiving what's already here. This sounded almost foreign to me. Spending time not working toward anything? Doctor, you can't appreciate what you won't receive, and you can't enjoy what you don't appreciate. This is why successful men often feel empty. They're so busy earning more that they never receive what they already have. The second practice was giving. Every day I give something away, not because I have extra, not because I can afford it, but because giving keeps my heart open and my soul flowing. What do you give away when you have nothing? I give attention to people who feel invisible. I give encouragement to people who feel discouraged. I give time to people who feel rushed. I give presence to people who feel alone. Doctor, you can always give something, even if you can't give money. And giving keeps you connected to abundance instead of scarcity. I realized that despite my wealth, I had become stingy with my non-monetary gifts. I gave money to charity, but I rarely gave genuine attention to people. I provided for my family financially, but I was stingy with presence and patience. The third practice is becoming. What do you mean? Every day I become slightly more than I was yesterday. Not more successful, more myself, more honest, more kind, more patient, more grateful, more aware. Most men focus on having more. I focus on being more, and the more I become, the less I need to have in order to feel wealthy. These 3 practices, receiving, giving, becoming, formed a complete cycle. When you practice receiving, you realize you already have abundance. When you practice giving, you realize your abundance is meant to flow through you, not stop at you. When you practice becoming, you realize you are abundance, not just someone who has abundance. Doctor, wealthy souls aren't people who possess wealth. Wealthy souls are people who embody wealth. There's a big difference. What's the difference? When you possess wealth, you worry about losing it. When you embody wealth, you know you can create it again any time because wealth flows from who you are, not just what you have. This was a complete paradigm shift. Wealth as identity rather than just possession. Here's what happens when you practice these 3 things daily, the beggar explained. You stop feeling like you need to chase abundance because you realize you're surrounded by abundance. You stop feeling like you need to hoard abundance because you realize abundance flows through generous hearts. And you stop feeling like you are separate from abundance because you realize you are abundance expressing itself through human form. Doctor, you've been trying to capture wealth, but wealth isn't meant to be captured. It's meant to be channeled. The daily practice of receiving, giving, and becoming turns you into a channel for wealth instead of a container for wealth. Containers eventually get full and stop receiving more. Channels stay open and keep flowing. Which do you want to be? I knew the answer immediately. I wanted to be a channel for abundance, not just a container for possessions. Then practice these three things every day. Receive what's already here. Give what you can offer. Become more of who you're meant to be. This is the daily practice that creates wealthy souls. Doctor, there's something poisoning your ability to feel wealthy, and most successful men don't even know they're infected with it. What? Entitlement. The word hit me like a slap. I'm not entitled. The beggar's eyes were kind but firm. Doctor, when good things happen to you, do you feel grateful for the gift or relieved that you finally got what you deserved? I had to think about this. When I received recognition for my work, did I feel thankful for the honor or satisfied that my efforts were finally being acknowledged as they should have been? When my business prospered, did I feel blessed by good fortune or vindicated that my hard work was paying off as it was supposed to? When my family was healthy, did I feel grateful for the miracle of wellness, or did I just assume that's how things should be because I worked hard to provide good health care? Entitlement, the beggar, explained, is when you start expecting life to pay you what you think you're owed. And when you expect life to pay you, nothing ever feels like a gift. Everything feels like a delayed payment. This was a devastating insight. When you feel entitled to success, achieving success doesn't make you grateful. It just makes you relieved that life finally paid its debt to you. When you feel entitled to love, receiving love doesn't make you thankful. It just confirms that people are recognizing your worth as they should. When you feel entitled to health, being healthy doesn't make you appreciate the miracle of your body. It just feels like the baseline you deserve. I realized I had indeed developed a sense of entitlement. After years of hard work, part of me felt like good outcomes were owed to me rather than gifted to me. The entitlement curse, the beggar continued, makes it impossible to feel wealthy, no matter how much you accumulate. Because when you feel entitled to what you receive, nothing feels like abundance. Everything feels like the minimum you should have gotten anyway. But doctor, here's the truth that will set you free. You're not owed anything, not success, not health, not love, not prosperity, not even your next breath. This should have felt depressing, but somehow it felt liberating. When you realize you're not owed anything, everything becomes a gift. Your health becomes a gift. Your abilities become a gift. Your opportunities become gifts. Your relationships become gifts. And when everything becomes a gift instead of an obligation that life owes you, you feel rich beyond measure. I thought about my own life through this lens. My education, was that something I was owed or a gift? My natural abilities, were those things I deserved or blessings I received? The opportunities that came my way, were those earned entitlements or unexpected graces? I used to live with massive entitlement, the beggar admitted. I thought the world owed me prosperity because I worked hard. I thought God owed me success because I was a good person. I thought life owed me happiness because I followed the rules. And because I thought I was owed these things, I never felt grateful when I received them. I just felt like life was finally paying its bills. But when I lost everything, I realized something beautiful. I was never owed any of it in the first place, which means everything I had ever received was pure gift. Doctor, entitlement makes you spiritually poor even when you're materially rich, but gratitude makes you spiritually rich even when you're materially poor. The cure for entitlement is remembering that existence itself is a gift you never earned and could never deserve. You didn't earn the gift of consciousness. You didn't earn the gift of being born in circumstances that allowed you to develop your abilities. You didn't earn the gift of living in a time and place where your skills could be valuable. These are all gifts, and when you remember their gifts, everything else becomes bonus gifts instead of overdue payments. Doctor, you're not entitled to wealth, which is why being wealthy should feel like winning the lottery every single day. Breaking the entitlement curse. Seeing gifts where you used to see obligations. Feeling blessed where you used to feel owed. This shift alone could transform your experience of prosperity from scarcity to abundance. A group of children had gathered around us, drawn by our conversation. The beggar's face lit up when he saw them. "Doctor, watch this," he whispered. He turned to the children with genuine interest. "Tell me about your day. What was the best part?" One child spoke excitedly about finding a beautiful stone, another about helping his mother with chores, a third about playing with friends. The beggar listened to each child as if their story was the most important thing he'd ever heard. He asked follow-up questions. He celebrated their small victories. He made each child feel seen and valued. Within minutes, the children were completely captivated. They forgot I was even there. Their full attention was on this man with nothing who was giving them his everything. "Doctor," the beggar said after the children ran off, "did you see what just happened? You were kind to some children." "More than that, I just demonstrated the secret of true leadership." "What do you mean?" "Those children didn't follow me because I had power over them. They followed me because I gave power to them. I made them feel important, valuable, interesting. True leadership isn't about making people serve you. It's about serving people in ways that help them feel more themselves." This was completely different from how most successful men approach leadership. Doctor, most wealthy men try to lead through intimidation, manipulation, or transaction. They use their resources to make people do what they want. But the most powerful leadership comes from elevation, making people feel bigger, not smaller, more capable, not less capable, more valuable, not less valuable. I thought about my own leadership style. How often did I try to lead through position rather than through service? How often did I use my resources to compel rather than to elevate? The children followed me because I was interested in them, not because I was interesting. I focused on their stories, not my own achievements. Doctor, here's what I've learned. The more you focus on making others feel important, the more important you become to them. The more you serve their dignity, the more they respect your authority. But when you try to lead by making people feel small compared to your success, they may comply, but they don't truly follow. They just submit until they can escape. This beggar with nothing was teaching me about influence that I had never learned from any business book or leadership seminar. True wealth, he continued, gives you the power to elevate others. False wealth makes you feel like you need to diminish others to maintain your position. When you feel secure in your own value, you can celebrate other people's value. When you feel insecure despite your success, other people's success feels threatening. I realized that my wealth had sometimes made me feel like I needed to maintain distance from others to preserve my status. But this beggar's poverty made him feel free to elevate everyone he met. Doctor, the children followed me because I made them feel rich. Rich in attention, rich in respect, rich in dignity. This is the leadership that creates loyalty, making people feel wealthy in the ways that matter most. When you use your success to make others feel successful, you create followers who stay with you because they want to, not because they have to. When you use your wealth to make others feel valuable, you create relationships based on mutual respect instead of fear or obligation. The beggar stood up and brushed the dust from his clothes. Doctor, you have resources I'll never have. But resources without the ability to elevate others just create servants. Resources with the heart to elevate others create leaders. The question is, Are you using your success to make people feel bigger or smaller? Are you using your wealth to elevate or intimidate? True leadership means people leave interactions with you feeling more valuable than when they arrived. Doctor, those children will remember this conversation for years, not because I gave them anything material, but because I gave them dignity. What will people remember about their interactions with you? This beggar was teaching me that the highest use of wealth is to enrich others' sense of their own value. Doctor, are you ready for a revolution? What kind of revolution? A gratitude revolution, one that will transform your entire experience of wealth overnight. I was intrigued. How could gratitude create a revolution? Here's what I want you to do for the next 30 days, the beggar said. Every single day, I want you to find one thing you already possess that you've been taking for granted, and I want you to spend 5 minutes being amazed by it. That's it? That's it. But doctor, this simple practice will change everything about how wealth feels to you. How? Because right now you're living with gratitude deficit. You have thousands of blessings you never acknowledge, and unacknowledged blessings feel like nothing instead of something. But when you start acknowledging your blessings, really seeing them, really appreciating them, they transform from invisible nothings into visible somethings. And when you have thousands of visible somethings instead of invisible nothings, you feel incredibly wealthy. The beggar pulled out his piece of bread again. Watch what happens when I apply this to something simple. He held the bread up to the light. This bread represents dozens of miracles I usually take for granted. The miracle that seeds grew into grain, the miracle that rain fell at the right times, the miracle that sun shone with perfect intensity, the miracle that farmers knew how to tend crops, the miracle that millers knew how to grind grain, the miracle that bakers knew how to make bread, the miracle that someone brought this bread to where I could find it. As he listed each miracle, I could see his face filling with genuine wonder. Doctor, this isn't just bread anymore. It's a symphony of miracles that somehow converge to nourish my body. This is what the gratitude revolution does. It transforms ordinary experiences into extraordinary revelations. Now you try it. Pick something you completely take for granted. I thought about my ability to see. I used my eyes constantly, but never marveled at the miracle of vision. Good choice, the beggar said. Now spend a moment being amazed by it. And as I focused on the miracle of sight, something shifted in my awareness. The fact that light could enter my eyes and become images in my brain suddenly seemed impossible and wonderful. The fact that I could see colors, distances, details, expressions, it was breathtaking when I really paid attention to it. How do you feel right now? The beggar asked. Wealthy, I said, surprised by my own answer. Exactly. You just discovered wealth you already possessed, but had never counted. This is the gratitude revolution. Doctor, you have hundreds of miracles you take for granted every day. Your heart beats without your conscious effort. Your immune system fights off countless threats you never know about. Your brain processes millions of pieces of information instantly. Your relationships provide love, support, and companionship. Your abilities allow you to create value and serve others. Your memory stores decades of experiences and knowledge. Your imagination can create possibilities that don't exist yet. Each one of these is worth more than gold, but you experience them as worthless because you never acknowledge them as miracles. The gratitude revolution, the beggar continued, means starting to see the extraordinary in what you've been calling ordinary. When you do this consistently, two things happen. First, you feel incredibly wealthy because you realize you're surrounded by treasures you never noticed. Second, you stop feeling like you need more external wealth to be happy because you're already happy with the internal wealth you've discovered. Doctor, most men spend their whole lives trying to acquire enough external wealth to feel internally wealthy. But the gratitude revolution teaches you to recognize the internal wealth you already possess. And when you feel internally wealthy, external wealth becomes a bonus instead of a necessity. Will you try this revolution for 30 days? I nodded, knowing this simple practice could transform my entire relationship with abundance. Remember, the beggar said, revolution means complete transformation. And gratitude has the power to completely transform how wealth feels to you. Not by changing what you have, but by changing how you see what you have. Doctor, can I tell you about the most expensive prison in the world? What prison? The status game prison. And I'm afraid you're living in it. His words stung, because I sensed their truth immediately. What do you mean? The status game prison is when you become addicted to other people's opinions about your success. You stop living your life and start performing your life for an audience that's never satisfied. This hit me like a physical blow. How much of my life was performance rather than authentic living? You buy things not because you need them or want them, but because they send signals about your status. You take jobs not because they fulfill you, but because they impress people. You make decisions not based on what serves your family's happiness, but on what maintains your reputation. You measure your success not by your own satisfaction, but by other people's envy. Doctor, when you live in the prison of the status game, you never actually achieve success. You only achieve success as far as your last accomplishment, your last purchase, your last promotion. I realized that was exactly my experience. Every success felt temporary because it was immediately measured against what others might think, what others had achieved, what others expected next. The prison of the status game is expensive, the beggar continued, because you can never afford to stop playing. Each level demands more money, more achievements, more possessions just to keep your position. But here's the cruel irony. The very people whose opinions you're trying to impress are also trapped in the prison of the status game. They're too busy performing their own lives to really care about yours. That was a devastating discovery. I was exhausting myself trying to impress people who were too distracted by their own status to even notice. Doctor, do you want to know how I escaped the prison of the status game? Yes. I stopped caring about status and started caring about significance. I stopped trying to look important and started trying to be useful. What's the difference? Status is about perception. Significance is about impact. Status is about what people think of you. Significance is about what you give to people. Status is competitive. If you win, someone else has to lose. Significance is collaborative. Everyone can be significant at the same time. Status is temporary. It must constantly be maintained. Significance is lasting. It outlives your achievements. Doctor, when you chase status, you become a slave to other people's opinions. When you chase significance, you become free to serve your own values. But doesn't significance require status? Don't you need position and wealth to make a real impact? The beggar smiled. Doctor, I have no status at all. I'm literally on the lowest rung of the social ladder. Yet I've had a significant impact on your life today, haven't I? He was absolutely right. This conversation was changing my entire worldview, and he had no status at all. Significance doesn't require status. It requires authenticity, service, and care. And those are available to everyone, regardless of position. In fact, sometimes high status makes significance harder because you get so focused on protecting your position that you lose touch with your purpose. I could see that in my own life. The higher my professional status climbed, the more energy I spent protecting and promoting it, and the less energy I had to truly serve people in meaningful ways. Doctor, here's how you escape the prison of the status game. Stop asking, what will people think? And start asking, what will people receive? Instead of, how will this make me look? Ask, how will this help others? Instead of, will this impress my peers, ask, will this serve my purpose? Instead of, does this fit my status, ask, does this fit my values? When you make those shifts, something beautiful happens. You stop being a prisoner of people's opinions and become a creator of your own impact. And paradoxically, when you stop chasing status and start creating meaning, people respect you more than when you were trying to impress them. The beggar stood and stretched. Doctor, status is a prison that looks like a palace, but significance is freedom that feels like home. Which one do you want to live in? The sun was setting, painting the sky with brilliant colors. The beggar looked at the scene and smiled in wonder. Doctor, this is my final teaching, the most important thing I've ever learned about wealth. I leaned in, knowing the conversation was coming to an end. True wealth, he said, isn't measured by what you can buy. It's measured by what you can lose without losing yourself. That statement hit me with profound force. What do you mean? Doctor, if you lost your money tomorrow, would you still be you? If you lost your position of prestige, would you still have purpose? If you lost your prized possessions, would you still have peace? I had to be honest. The thought of losing those things terrified me because I wasn't sure who I'd be without them. That's how you know whether you own your wealth or your wealth owns you. If losing your outer wealth would destroy your inner sense of self, then you're not rich. You're dependent. But if you could lose everything and still hold on to your core identity, your essential purpose, your fundamental peace, then you are truly rich, regardless of what's in your bank account. The beggar gestured to himself. I lost everything, Doctor. Money, status, possessions, social standing. But I didn't lose myself. In fact, I found myself. When everything external was stripped away, I discovered what was eternal. And what I found was worth more than everything I'd lost. What did you discover? I discovered I am not my possessions. I am not my achievements. I am not my reputation. I am not even my circumstances. I am the awareness that experiences all these things. I am the perception that observes these conditions. I am the spirit that can find joy in any situation and meaning in any moment. Doctor, this awareness, this perception, this spirit, this is the only wealth you can never lose. Everything else is borrowed, temporary, subject to change. But when you know who you are beyond what you have, you become unshakable. Not because your circumstances can't change, but because you know you can thrive no matter how they change. It was the deepest teaching I had ever received. Doctor, most wealthy men fear losing their wealth because they confuse wealth with worth. But true wealth is knowing your worth doesn't depend on your wealth. When you know that, you can enjoy wealth without being enslaved by it. You can pursue success without being destroyed by fear of failure. You can accumulate resources without accumulating anxiety. That's what I call detached prosperity. Having wealth that serves your purpose, without living a purpose that serves your wealth. I sat in silence for several minutes, absorbing his teaching. The beggar was describing a kind of freedom I had never known. The freedom that comes from knowing you are whole in yourself, regardless of external circumstances. Doctor, you came here today thinking I was poor and you were rich. But consider another possibility. What's that? Perhaps I'm rich in what matters most, and you are poor in what matters most. Perhaps my poverty taught me to find wealth in places you never learned to look. Perhaps losing everything showed me what can never be lost. Perhaps having nothing revealed that I already had everything. The beggar stood to leave. Doctor, you have a choice. You can keep measuring wealth by what you accumulate. Or you can begin measuring it by what you appreciate. You can keep chasing outer abundance while ignoring inner abundance. Or you can develop inner abundance that turns any outer circumstance into enough. The choice is yours. But remember this, outer wealth without inner wealth is poverty. Inner wealth without outer wealth is simply unconventional prosperity. But inner wealth with outer wealth, that's the kind of prosperity that changes the world. As he walked away, I realized I had just received the most valuable education of my life from a man who owned nothing, yet was everything. The beggar was getting ready to leave, but I had one last desperate question. Wait, how do I actually live this way? How do I turn everything you've taught me into daily practice? He turned with that gentle smile. Doctor, you need a new prosperity protocol, a daily system that builds inner wealth while you continue building outer wealth. Tell me, every morning, before you count your money, count your blessings. Before you check your investments, recognize your advantages. Before you plan your work, appreciate your worth. That lays the foundation. You start each day with abundance, not scarcity. Then throughout the day, practice the 3 sacred pauses. What's that? First pause. Before every meal, recognize the miracle of nourishment. Don't just eat. Receive the gift of food. That keeps you connected to gratitude instead of entitlement. Second pause. Before any interaction with another person, remember their inherent dignity. Don't use people just to reach your goals. Honor the miracle of human connection. That keeps you connected to service instead of selfishness. Third pause. Before every business decision, ask yourself, does this serve my highest values? Don't just chase profit. Align your actions with your purpose. That keeps you connected to meaning instead of emptiness. I could see how those simple pauses would completely transform my daily experience. But doctor, here's the most important part of your new prosperity protocol. Every night, practice the wealth inventory. Geez, what's that? Before you sleep, count 10 forms of wealth you experienced that day that money couldn't buy. The wealth of health that carried you through your day. The wealth of relationships that gave you love and support. The wealth of skills that allowed you to serve and create. The wealth of experiences that deepened your understanding. The wealth of challenges that strengthened your character. The wealth of beauty that filled your senses. The wealth of purpose that guided your choices. The wealth of peace that calmed your mind. The wealth of growth that expanded your potential. The wealth of hope that inspired your future. Doctor, when you end each day recognizing 10 forms of non-monetary wealth, you'll go to bed feeling rich, no matter what happens in the markets. And when you consistently go to bed feeling rich, you'll wake up feeling abundant instead of anxious. This protocol was simple, yet revolutionary. Here's what will happen if you follow this prosperity protocol consistently, the beggar promised. In 1 month, you'll feel richer than ever, even if your bank account doesn't change. Within 3 months, your outer wealth will probably begin to grow faster because you'll be operating from a mindset of abundance instead of scarcity. And in 6 months, you'll realize wealth isn't something you have, it's something you are. And once you realize you are wealth, you can create it anywhere, anytime, in any circumstance. But doctor, the most important outcome is this. You'll stop fearing the loss of wealth because you'll know your true wealth can never be lost. The beggar reached into his pocket and pulled out a small stone. I want you to take this. Why? As a reminder. Whenever you feel poor, despite your possessions, hold this stone. Remember that I found wealth in nothing but stones, bread, and sunrises. If I can find wealth in so little, you can surely find wealth in so much. I took the stone, knowing it would become one of my most precious possessions. Doctor, your new prosperity protocol isn't just about feeling better. It's about becoming the kind of person who can handle both wealth and poverty with the same grace, because that's what true prosperity means. Being so secure in your inner abundance that your outer circumstances become irrelevant to your happiness. You'll still work, you'll still build, you'll still achieve, But you'll do it from fullness, not emptiness, from abundance, not scarcity, from joy, not anxiety. This is the prosperity protocol that creates sustainable wealth in every dimension of life. The beggar stood in the fading light, preparing for his final words. Doctor, every man reaches a moment when he must choose between two kinds of wealth. You've reached that moment. What two kinds? Accumulating wealth and appreciating wealth. Accumulating wealth says, I'll be happy when I have enough. Appreciating wealth says, I have enough to be happy now. Accumulating wealth looks at what's missing and says, not yet. Appreciating wealth looks at what's present and says, more than enough. Accumulating wealth makes you rich in possessions, but poor in satisfaction. Appreciating wealth makes you rich in satisfaction, regardless of possessions. Doctor, which kind of wealth will you choose? That was the final question. Everything we had discussed came down to this choice. But can't I have both? I asked. Of course. In fact, appreciating wealth often leads to accumulating more wealth because grateful people attract abundance. But you must choose which one is your foundation. If accumulating wealth is your foundation, you'll never have enough appreciating wealth to feel satisfied. But if appreciating wealth is your foundation, you'll enjoy accumulating wealth without being enslaved by it. The beggar looked directly into my eyes. Doctor, you've spent decades building accumulative wealth. How has that felt? I had to be honest. Empty, anxious, never enough. Now imagine spending the next decades building appreciative wealth. How do you think that would feel? I could barely imagine it. Fulfilling, peaceful, always enough. Then you know which foundation to choose. The beggar began walking away, then turned back one final time. Doctor, I'll tell you a secret. The choice between accumulative and appreciative wealth isn't really a choice between poverty and prosperity. It's a choice between living as a beggar or living as a king. What do you mean? A beggar is someone who believes he doesn't have enough, regardless of how much he has. A king is someone who knows he has everything he needs, regardless of how little he has. I'm a king, Doctor. I rule over a kingdom of gratitude, appreciation, and inner abundance. My kingdom can never be conquered because it exists in my perspective, not my possessions. You can be a king too, but only if you stop living like a beggar who happens to have money. The choice is yours. Will you be a wealthy beggar or a poor king? I knew exactly what he meant. I had been living as a wealthy beggar, someone with possessions who still felt impoverished inside. Doctor, kings don't worry about losing their kingdoms because they know their true kingdom is internal. Beggars constantly worry about losing their possessions because their possessions are their only source of security. Which do you want to be? As the beggar walked away into the gathering dusk, his final words echoed in my mind. Remember, Doctor, the beggar taught the king. Sometimes the poorest people are the richest teachers, and sometimes the richest people are the poorest students. But today, you chose to be a rich student learning from a poor teacher. That choice alone makes you wealthier than you were this morning. I sat there long after he disappeared, holding the small stone he had given me, feeling richer than I had ever felt in my life. Not because I had gained anything, but because I had finally learned to see what I already possessed. 800 years have passed since that conversation outside the synagogue, but the beggar's words still echo in my mind every day. That encounter changed everything about how I approached wealth, success, and life itself. I learned that prosperity isn't about having more, it's about appreciating more. I learned that security doesn't come from accumulating enough to never worry. It comes from developing the ability to find peace regardless of circumstances. I learned that true wealth is not measured by your bank account. It is measured by your ability to feel gratitude for what you already have. More importantly, I learned that you don't need to choose between material success and spiritual fulfillment. But you do need to get the order right. Spiritual wealth first, material wealth second, inner abundance first, outer accumulation second, appreciating prosperity first, accumulating prosperity second. When you get the order right, both kinds of wealth support each other instead of competing against each other. My friend, you've just heard the story of how a beggar taught a king. But this is not really a story about us. It's a story about you. You are both the successful doctor and the wise beggar. You have external achievements that must be balanced with inner wisdom. You have material wealth that must be grounded in spiritual wealth. The question is not whether you can transform your relationship with prosperity. The question is whether you will. Every morning, when you wake up, you face the same choice I faced outside that synagogue. Will you count your problems or your blessings? Will you focus on what's missing or appreciate what's present? Will you live as a rich beggar or a poor king? The beggar gave me a stone to remember his teachings. I'm sharing this story to remind you of his wisdom. True wealth is not what you can buy. It is what you can lose without losing yourself. You already possess more wealth than you realize. The only question is whether you are willing to see it. If the beggar's wisdom has opened your eyes to a wealth you didn't know you had, if you are ready to transform accumulating prosperity into appreciating prosperity, if you want to learn how to be successful on the outside and fulfilled on the inside, then I need you to do something important. Share this teaching with someone who needs to hear it. There are men in your circle right now living as rich beggars, thinking more possessions will fill the inner void. They need to discover what you just discovered. And if you want to keep learning how ancient wisdom can create modern prosperity, both material and spiritual, then stay connected for every teaching I share. Now, if you want to keep learning with me, subscribe to the channel. It's simple. Below this video, there's a red button that says subscribe. Click it now, and right next to it, there's a small bell. Click that too, so you'll be notified the moment I share the next teaching. Subscribe now so you don't miss anything. The choice every man must make awaits your answer. Choose wisely.